Hello and welcome to revision classes on television. Today, we will be having a session in mathematics. Our guide is Rafiat Yusuf, and our topic today is quadratic equation.
Quadratic equation is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, which is equals to 0. A is the coefficient of x squared, b is your coefficient of x, while c is the constant. We have different methods of solving quadratic equation. We have the factorization method, we have the completing the square, we have the formula method, and lastly, your graphical method. The factorization method, I'll just summarize. The factorization method is all about using factors to solve. The completing the square, in this case, you find the coefficient of your x, you square it, you have it and square it, then add it to both sides to complete the square. Your formula method, it has a formula for it. That's why we call it formula method. Some students call it almighty formula, but that's just by the way. Then we have the graphical method. We know anything that involves graphical method is talking about using graph. So in this case, we know that we have different methods of solving quadratic equations. So it depends. Sometimes you see some questions, they will tell you to use a particular method to solve. Please, if you are told to use a particular method to solve, do not use another method to solve, because if you do that, your method will be 0 and your accuracy will be 0. Nobody will mark it for you. So please take note of all that. Now let's review some past questions that are related to quadratic equations. Now, we have a question on the board. If you look at this question, it's telling you to use completing the square method. It has specified the method you're asked to use. Please do not go ahead and use either factorization method or you use a formula method just because you prefer such method. Always stick to this, because at the end, you are going to lose your mark. So with this, you look at this question. It's not yet in the form of a quadratic equation. Remember I said your quadratic equation is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. But if you look at this equation here, it is not in this form. So before you go ahead, we'll try to evaluate this equation so that it becomes this quadratic equation. So evaluating this equation, we have an equation on the board. You see? Solution. Having this equation, x minus 2 over 4 equals x plus 2 over 2x. You cross multiply, because a fraction equals to another fraction. You just cross multiply. When you are cross multiplying, you have 2x into bracket to multiply your x minus 2 equals 4 to multiply x plus 2. Now, anytime you have a bracket, always remove your bracket before you proceed. So removing the bracket, we have 2x times x will give 2x squared. 2x times 2 will be minus 4x equals to 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 2 will give you 8. Now, looking at this, the next thing to do is to collect like terms. So collecting like terms, we have 2x squared, you have minus 4x. So bringing this 4x to the other side, it gives minus 4x. Bringing this 8 also to the other side, we have minus 8, all equals to 0. You see that we are almost achieving this quadratic equation, but we are not there yet. So let's continue evaluating. So we have 2x squared minus 4x we give minus 8x. You have minus 8x and you have minus 8 equals to 0. This is in the form of this, but because we are asked to use completing the square method, the coefficient of x squared must be equals to 1 before you can go ahead to solve with completing the square. But looking at this equation, the coefficient of x squared is 2. So we have to make the coefficient of x squared to be 1 before we proceed. So making the coefficient of x squared to be 1, you divide all through by 2. So dividing all through by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2, divide this by 2. I have 2 into 2. This is now x squared. 2 into 2 into 8, you have 4 minus 4x. 2 into 8, we still have minus 4 equals 0 divided by 2 will still give you 0. Now we have the quadratic equation completely with the coefficient of x squared to be 1. Now we can now use our completing the square method to solve. Before you start that, you take the constant, which is minus 4, to the other side, that's to the right hand side. So taking your constant to the right hand side, you have x squared minus 4x equals, taking this to this other side will give you plus 4. Now the next step is you take the coefficient of x, you multiply it by half, you square it and add to both sides to complete the square. That is where they got the name completing the square. So now the coefficient of x here is minus 4. I said you should multiply it by half. If you multiply it by half, you have what? Minus 2. Then square it and add to both sides. So you square your minus 2, then add it to both sides of the equation. So doing that, I have x squared minus 4x, then plus minus 2 squared. That's what I'm adding to both sides, equals 4 plus minus 2 squared. Now picking the square, which is, if I pick this and this, I have x minus 2 all raised to power 2. If you open up this bracket, it should give you this equation back. You get your equation back. So proceeding, we have 4 plus, what is 2 raised to power 2 minus 2 raised to power 2 will give you plus 4. This is just saying minus 2 times minus 2, which will give you plus 4. So here I have 4. With this, we have x minus 2 equals 4 plus 4 will give you 8. You have 8. Now, taking square roots of both sides in order to cancel the square that is here. So if you take square roots of both sides, we have x minus 2. The square root, we cancel this square here, is equals plus or minus square root of 8. Why are we putting plus or minus in square roots? Because the square of a positive number or a negative number will still give you that positive number. Let me prove that. If I have minus 2 squared, it will still give me plus 4. And if I have 2 squared, it will still give me plus 4. That is why anytime you have taken square root of any number, you make sure you put your plus or minus the square root. So now let's proceed. Solving x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 8 should give you something close to 3, but not up to 3, because we know the closest perfect square to 8 is 9. So we have 2.828. Proceeding, so taking minus 2 to this other side, minus 2 we turn to plus 2. So I have x is equals to 2 plus or minus 2.828. We know at the end we have two values for your x. So my x is either 2 plus 2.828, or the x will be 2 minus 2.828. Solving this, 2 plus 2.828, 2 plus 2 will give 4.828. And this 2 minus 2 will be 0.828. But from our question, we are told to solve, leaving our answer to 2 decimal places. So if you do the mistake of leaving your answer like this and say, oh, I've arrived at the final answer, at the end, if your accuracy was supposed to be 2 marks, you will lose 1 mark, because okay, fine, you have gotten this, which is correct, but the final answer that said you should leave it to 2 decimal places, you have not done that. So please don't forget that. So at the end, making it to 2 decimal places, you have 4.83. Then you write it here to 2 decimal places. This other one also to 2 decimal places, I have 0.83 to 2 decimal places, and that is the value of x. You can summarize here that x is either 4.83 or 0.83. Question number 2. We have the root of a quadratic equation are 4/3 and minus 3/7. Find the equation. When they say the root of an equation, it means that the values of x, just like the previous question we just solved now, it's the values of our x are the roots of the equation. So in this case, it means that if they tell you that the roots of an equation are this, it means the values of x is 4/3 and minus 3/7. So from there, they only gave the root of the equation. From the root, you should be able to get via the main equation out. I mean the quadratic equation. So looking at that solution, if these are the roots of the equation, it means x is equals to 4/3 and your x is equals to minus 3/7. From this first value, if you cross multiply, we have 3x is equals to 4. If you do that here also, cross multiplying, we have 7x equals minus 3. Bringing the equation to the other side to equate it to 0, we have 3x, bringing this 4 here, I have minus 4 equals to 0. Then I have here 7x plus 3 equals to 0. So multiplying these two equations should give you the quadratic equation that we are looking for. So bringing them together, I have 3x minus 4 into brackets 7x plus 3 all equals to 0. So let's try to open up this bracket. This will give me 3x into bracket 7x plus 3 and minus 4 into bracket 7x plus 3 all equals to 0. Opening up the bracket, that's to remove our bracket. 3 times 7 is 21. X times x, x squared. 3 times 3x, I have 9x. Minus 4 times 7 minus 28 x minus 4 times 3 minus 12 equals to 0. Simplifying this, we have 21x squared plus 9 minus 28 will give you minus 19x minus 12 equals to 0. Finally, we have the quadratic equation. Alternatively, you can use a formula to solve this question, this same question I solved, but using a different method. That's why I said alternatively. You can use a formula which is x squared minus sum of root x plus product of roots. Using this formula and putting in mind that the roots of the equations are, we have 4 over 3 and minus 3 over 7. So putting it into this formula that I just wrote, we have x squared minus, I said sum of roots. You know what sum is. That's adding your roots together, which is 4 over 3 plus, I have minus 3 over 7. Don't forget your x is still outside. Plus product of roots, that's multiplying your roots together. Product of roots will be 4 over 3 times minus 3 over 7. That's product. So proceeding, we have x squared minus 4 over 3 plus times minus, we give minus 3 over 7, your x, plus evaluating this, 3 here 1, 3 here 1. So I have 4 times minus 1, which is minus 4. Then 1 times 7, I have 7. So let's evaluate this bracket. We have x squared minus, solving this fraction, you get the LCM of your denominator, which is 21. 3 times 7. That will give you 21. 3 in 21 is 7. 7 times 4, you have 28. Minus 7 in 21 is 3. 3 times 3, we give 9. All bracket x. So plus times minus, I can say is minus 4 over 7. We'll still continue with this to solve. We have x squared minus 28 minus 9, we give 19 over 21 x minus 4 over 7. So we can decide to remove our bracket to give x squared minus 19 over 21 x minus 4 over 7. Having this, you see that we can simplify this to have, let me equate this to 0, okay? So we get to clear the fraction. That's, I want to clear this fraction such that I will not have any fraction. You divide each term by the LCM of your denominators. That's the LCM of 21 and 7. So checking the LCM of 21 and 7, it will give you 21, because 21 can go in 21, 7 can also go in 21. Multiplying each term by the LCM, I have 21 x squared. That's 21 times this x squared will give 21 x squared minus 19 over 21 times 21 minus 4 over 7 times 21, all equals to 0. So 21 x squared, 21 we cancel 21, I have minus 19, not for my x is still here, please. Minus 19x, then 7 in 21 we give 3, 4 times 3 we give 12, so I have minus 12, all equals to 0. If you look at this equation and this other equation, you see we use different methods to solve, but you still arrive at the same answer. So if the method depends on which one you prefer to use, make sure that you solve it correctly. So question number 3. Solve. Question number 3. Solve 4x squared minus 16x plus 15 equals 0. If you look at this question, it's also a quadratic equation, but they just asked us to solve. They did not specify any method to use. So in this case, you are free to use any method you prefer, be it the formula method, factorization method, completing the square, and even the graphical method. It's your choice. Because we have used completing the square method to solve earlier, I would like us to use formula method this time around, so we know how to use formula method to solve. Using formula method, you have x is equals to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, we have the formula on the board. What is your a? What is your b? What is your c? I said earlier that a is the coefficient of your x squared. So here, what is the coefficient of our x squared? Is plus 4. So our a will be 4. B is the coefficient of your x. So in this question, the coefficient of our x here is minus 16. So our b will be minus 16. And your c is your constant. So here, our constant is 15. So having the value of a, b, and c, what next is to substitute into the formula. So substituting into the formula, we have x is minus b. My b is minus 16, so I'll have to put it in bracket so as not to confuse the minus, because at the end you may be getting a different sign. So that's minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is minus 16 squared, minus 4 a times c. I'll put it in bracket. A is 4 times c is 15 all over 2a is 2 times, what is our a? Our a is 4. Now evaluating, this will be minus times minus, I have plus, so the negative sign of the 16 is now positive, plus or minus the square root of minus 16, that's minus 16 times minus 16, which is 256, that's 256. Then I have minus 4. 4 times 15 will give 60 all over your 2 times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Evaluating further, we have 16 plus or minus the square root of 256. Now minus 4 times 6, say 4 times 6 is 24. With this 0, that will give you 240. So that's minus 240 all over your 8. So we have solving, it will give us our x is equals to 16 plus or minus 256 minus 240 will be the square root of 256 minus 240, 16 all over 8. Now I have x equals 16 plus or minus, what is the square root of 16? Square root of 16 will give you 4 all over 8. Now when you want to solve, because you still have plus or minus, we are going to have two values for x. We have x is equals to 16 plus 4 over 8, or you say x is equals to 16 minus 4 over 8. So this will give 16 plus 4, that's 20 over 8. Or you say x is 16 minus 4, that's 12 over 8. Simplifying this, 4 can go, 4 in 8, 2, 4 in 20, 5. So your x is 5 over 2, or 4 in 8, 2, 4 in 12, 3, or your x is 3 over 2. You can still simplify by saying 2 in 5, 2 whole number, 1 over 2, or 3 in 2, 2 in 3 is 1 whole number, 1 over 2. So the values of x is 2.5 or 1.5. If you use any other method to solve, either factorization or completing the square, you will still get the value of x to be 2.5 or 1.5.
You can subscribe to NTA series on YouTube to watch or download past episodes of revision classes on television. That's the much we can take on the program today. Do join us next time for another educating session.